Hi guys and welcome to Strength Universe. In today's video I thought we'd take a look at the life and career of a bodybuilder whose strength has possibly been overlooked. Andy Haman was born in Iowa City on the 16th of August 1968. He stood 180 centimetres or 5 foot 11 inches tall and weighed 131 kilograms or 290 pounds in the off-season. Andy attended Iowa City High School where he was part of the wrestling team and started to lift weights. He competed in and won the 1983 Mr. Teenage Iowa Bodybuilding competition and was a highly successful wrestler with 210 victories, including winning the 1984 Heavyweight State Championship shortly before graduating.
Third place, Lou Solari, Ankeny. Runner-up, Kelly Flynn, West Des Moines Dowling. And the Class 3A heavyweight champion from Iowa City, City High, Andy Haman.
Andy Haman. His coach Clyde Bean was coach of the year, and he's the heavyweight of the year in the AAA division, Andy Haman.
Haman got a wrestling scholarship to the University of Iowa under collegiate and Olympic wrestler Dan Gable. While there, he was a national freestyle champion, Olympic Sport Festival champion and world runner-up in wrestling, as a varsity team member of 4 national championship wrestling teams. He graduated from the University of Iowa with a Bachelor of Science in Education with a minor in Health and Art. Andy competed in further bodybuilding tournaments, winning the 1987 Midwest Mr. Chicago Natural Bodybuilding Championship, but gave up on the sport to focus on teaching. In 1990, he returned to Iowa City High School as a PE teacher and coach. A couple of years later, Andy married Michelle, whom he'd known since childhood and began dating in 1983. In 1992, Andy started to work as a fitness director for the YMCA in Lexington, Kentucky, where he worked until 1994, when he and Michelle relocated to Colorado Springs, where Andy worked as a PE teacher, head wrestling coach, and assistant football coach at the Thomas B. Doherty High School. Over the next few years, Andy and Michelle started a family, first with the birth of Samuel in 1996, who was later joined by 3 sisters, Daisy in 1998, Ruby in 2000, and Lucy a few years later. In 2004, Andy talked with his wife about making a return to bodybuilding, but after meeting some professionals over the years, he felt disillusioned with the sport and attitude of some of the athletes. If he was going to make a return to bodybuilding, he was going to be the nicest bodybuilder in the world, show respect to other competitors and fans, and most importantly, have fun. Shortly afterwards, Andy resigned from his job at Thomas B. Doherty High School to focus on bodybuilding. Andy made a successful return to bodybuilding by winning the 2006 NPC Colorado State Championship in the super heavyweight class, but his success was short-lived, as later in the year he placed 16th at both the NPC USA Championship and the NPC National Championships. Shortly after these competitions, Andy contacted Dave Palumbo to ask for help with his diet and contest prep. The following year, Haman placed 2nd at the Sean Ray Colorado NPC Classic, before going on to win the super heavyweight class and overall title at the NPC Masters Bodybuilding National Championships, where he earned his IFBB Pro card. Shortly after the win, Andy's larger-than-life personality brought him to the attention of many supplement companies, including Dimetized Nutrition, for whom he worked from 2007 for over a decade. During this time, he made several audition tapes for new TV shows, including American Gladiators, and many of Andy's best but most controversial lifts were released on social media.
Hi, my name is Andy Haman. I'm 42. I'm from Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm a school teacher and IFBB Pro Bodybuilder. Why I think I'd be good for the show: I'm the strongest pro bodybuilder in the world right now. I can bench more and curl more than anybody competing. I'm still agile. I can run a 4.940. That's NFL quality. At my age, that's pretty good. I still can move. I still got great balance. 3, go.
600-pound bench press for 4 repetitions would give an approximate 1 rep max of 650 pounds, which would be the 4th highest Raw Masters bench press in the 308-pound weight class of all time. While I believe this is unlikely, there are many people who have spotted Andy and seen him train and corroborate his claims of benching over 600 pounds.
People lifting with fake weights and everything like that. So people always ask me, did Andy Haman really bench press 600 pounds, with no equipment on?
The answer to that question is no. I benched 675 pounds.
Wow.
Which was about 15 minutes after I did 600 pounds with a tank top on.
Yeah.
And when I did it, it was when you could not get on your phone and just post. Right. I had to hire a guy for $300 to videotape me.
If this lift was genuine, it would be the highest Masters Raw squat of all time in the 308-pound weight class. Due to this, the walkout and the fact Andy is on video claiming to have a 750-pound squat makes this seem highly unlikely.
I can bench over 600 pounds, I can squat 750 pounds, and I can do about 28 push-ups, or not push-ups, pull-ups.
The fact of the matter is that only Andy and the people that spotted for him know if he pressed 600 pounds and squatted 855. This certainly shouldn't take away from the fact that he was absolutely one of the strongest bodybuilders of all time, especially when taking into account the fact that he took a long break from lifting and all of his recorded lifts were done well past his peak. Here are some of Andy's best lifts that show he genuinely was a beast.
We're at Armber's gym. We're going to do some 175s, I hope. Ready to go? Up. I got it. Up. 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 Okay, push. Up. Diamond
Eager to silence his critics, Andy got started. First, Andy hit the pull-up machine, where he did 25 in 30 seconds. Next, it was time to hit the floor for some up-downs. And he finished it all off with some suicides. Despite having a 250-pound frame, the big man did a great job pacing himself.
Try to go out and, go slowly get stronger and stronger instead of fizzing out at the end. So, it's fun.
In 2010, Andy officially retired from competitive bodybuilding. But over the next few years, he and his family continue to appear at expos and do guest posing for Dimetized Nutrition. He spent as much time as possible with his wife and children, who he adored. His son Samuel very much followed in Andy's footsteps, excelling in wrestling, lifting weights and football, and Daisy and Ruby were exceptional weightlifters. Andy would face probably the biggest controversy of his career while attending the 2014 FIBO Expo on behalf of Dimetized Nutrition, when he stepped onto the stage to arm wrestle Denis Saplenkov in his usual jovial manner. He knew Denis would beat him in arm wrestling but wanted to show that he would have the upper hand in wrestling. But due to the language barrier and miscommunication, things seemed to escalate more than they otherwise would have. Of course, some on social media like to blow things out of all proportion and give their expert opinions, many commenting that Andy was on drugs or lucky that Dennis didn't give him a beating. These individuals clearly didn't know of Andy's flamboyant personality or his extensive wrestling background, otherwise the encounter may have made more sense.
Был шанс одарить супергероя. Это сняли на видео, это будет очень интересное видео, да. То есть это только, не знаю, в мультиках бывает такое.
Over the next year, Andy would travel all around America promoting Dymatize nutrition and taking part in many promotional events. He would travel to many overseas countries including India, Japan, Thailand, Brazil and Colombia. During his days off, Andy would regularly visit children's hospitals to bring a smile to the face of those suffering with serious illnesses.
Hey, it's Andy Haman. We are in Oklahoma City. We're at Children's Hospital. Come on in. We're going to spend a bunch of time today with different kids, parents, and patients here at the blood unit, cancer unit, and just...
In May 2015, Andy was admitted to hospital to have stretching of the esophagus due to suffering from eosinophilic esophagitis, which is a narrowing of the esophagus that causes choking. Andy's procedure was successful and he was able to return to training and eating a couple of days later. Andy travelled to Brazil shortly afterwards to represent Dymatize Nutrition at the 2015 Arnold Sports Expo. The following month, he and his family jetted off to Hawaii for a vacation and to celebrate Independence Day. And a couple of weeks after that, Samuel competed at the Pittsburgh Teen Nationals and became a Dymatize sponsored athlete. In late September and early October, Andy travelled to China and Thailand as part of a Dymatize promotional tour of Southeast Asia. Shortly after returning to the United States, Andy ruptured his tricep while attempting a 300-pound tricep extension. Luckily, Sam was spotting and saved his dad from further injury. He immediately rushed Andy to hospital, who was taken into surgery that afternoon to have his tricep tendon reattached.
Hey, life's about making good decisions. We didn't make a good decision yesterday about doing tricep extensions, but I'm still alive and my family is all healthy.
Andy returned to training and work only a few days after suffering his injury. Over the next year, he continued to travel working for Dymatize Nutrition and visiting children's hospitals and supporting his wife and children. In early 2016, Andy got a leading role in the budget movie The Jurassic Dead that was due to be released later in the year. From October 2016, Andy reduced his work commitments to Dymatize Nutrition and started to work as a brand representative and spokesperson for R Labs, who were based in Colorado. In the first half of 2017, Andy continued to do promotional work for R Labs and Monster Clothing. In April, the Jurassic Dead movie was officially released, and in July, Sam won the tall class of the 2017 Collegiate National Championships in Pittsburgh. In August, Ruby represented the USA weightlifting team in Taiwan at the University World Championships. In late October of that year, Andy founded Incredible Way Nutrition. Throughout 2018, Andy visited expos and released new products to promote Incredible Way Nutrition. He had fun and laughs with his family, and in July, Sam was crowned the NPC Collegiate Classic Physique Champion. And Andy continued to bring a smile to the face of children at hospitals all around the country. Over the past few months, Andy had been unable to train due to shoulder problems, and in April he underwent surgery to repair his damaged rotator cuff. The Hamans had a vacation in Hawaii in July, and then at the end of the year, just after Christmas, Samuel married Emma. 2020 didn't get off to the best of starts when Andy was admitted to hospital in February after suffering a deep vein thrombosis in his calf, from which a blood clot broke off and travelled to his lungs to become a pulmonary embolism. Luckily, Andy survived the ordeal and was placed on blood thinners for 10 days. Andy had an absolutely fantastic Father's Day weekend when his daughter Daisy married Taylor. On Sunday, the 14th of March, the elbow where Andy had had his tricep reattached 5 years earlier became very swollen and painful. He went to see his orthopaedic surgeon on Tuesday, who drained pus from the site. The surgeon cancelled his afternoon appointments and immediately booked Andy in for surgery. After the surgery, Andy spent 3 days in hospital on IV antibiotics and anticoagulants. He returned home Thursday and seemed fine on Friday.
Yes, sir. Oh, you're welcome.
I need some more ice too. I need another ice pack.
It's a little bit cold. I mean, warm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Later on, Andy was laying on top of the bed when he rolled over and took his last breath. CPR was given and paramedics were called, but at this stage it was too late. It's believed that he suffered from a pulmonary embolism after a blood clot broke away from the site of his elbow surgery. Sadly, less than 2 months after Andy died, his sister Becky passed away on the 7th of May.